but we're very happy to be here with us. So when we talk in our leadership programs, we talk quite a bit about engagement and what it takes and how to really achieve engagement of others. And we're normally then talking for performance, for delivery of things that are perhaps known or things that are already sort of scoped. But we thought we'd sort of change the angle for this one in terms of how do you, create and manage and maintain engagement for new things and for innovating, which is what we were just starting to talk about there, is, the current circumstances have plopped us into an environment where actually we're going to have to innovate. So actually, what can we learn about that? And what would also be powerful to remember in more normal times that actually helps encourage innovation? You can't keep creating a crisis to get innovation, or not one like this, we hope. But that's the kind of gist for today, really. Oh gosh, Lee, my slide's frozen already. Lee, you there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Click.
Please, could you?
I can share if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, go on. For some reason, it's when you and I are on, Joe. That's what happens. It obviously affects the slides. So we'll just hang on while he does that. Are you both using Zoom in your organisations?
You're on mute, Anne.
Okay. Lee, I don't think we need to do that very first poll. We'll leave that. Okay, that's great. Okay, Lee, so next one. Okay, so usual idea, guys, we'll be finishing for 10. I've got a couple of sort of nuggets really to share and explore with you. And we're going to use a couple of the tools along the way. Use the live chat as we go on. And as you both know, we're very happy to have a chat about anything we talk about hereafter. And we'll put the webinar onto the website afterwards, as we've been doing. So Lee, if you just could sort of show us the next one. I think everyone's familiar with that now, so we can move straight on from there. And this is me. Those of you who know me better, which is probably Joe a bit more than Richard, technology is not my thing. I'm very much, everyone sat in a circle, flip charts, and here I am in full flow at our last kind of big open event in London last year. But me, like everyone else, has had to embrace the technology fast. So that gave me one very anxious day of feeling like, oh gosh, everything about this is new. But then actually being sort of thrust into it, realizing actually the human interaction, the content, the me is all the same. It's just a different medium. So it's really actually helped me kind of shoot through a bit of a self-limiting belief about it and kind of find our way to make it work. And I have to say, being supported by Lee and Colin today has really helped. So I think there's a little insight for me there is about when working with something really new, it really helps to have somebody else around, either as support or a sounding board. And I think that's probably a truth about kind of, unrequested change or things that feel very innovative. That's a bit hard on your own. So who would be a good person to have alongside you as you seek to innovate is something that's just happened here. But I would remember that one for next time as well. So let's just, next slide, Lee, in terms of innovation itself and why it matters so much. So obviously, with innovation, it gives you the chance to resolve problems and issues and blockages quickly, as in the idea and the doing something different. But also the power of it can be if you've got more of an encouragement, a sort of culture for innovation, you might be solving problems before they even arise. So you could be catching things much quicker that are starting to either not work and come up with new solutions, or actually you could be heading off things that might become a problem by thinking about actually what are some of the alternatives we might be pulling on. So by having more of an innovation culture, more of an innovative environment, it's obviously going to increase performance because you won't get stuck on the blockages. You won't get kind of behind the wave. And because the very nature of innovation is something new that is better or new that is different. And therefore you're much more likely to get more value out of the time or value out of the resources. And we're just going through these because obviously the opposite will be true. If you don't innovate, you won't have these things. the marketplace is always innovating, whatever sector you're in. You know, the way people shop, the way people do handle their personal finances, that's always changing. So if your own environment, your team, your organization, your division isn't innovating, you will very quickly get behind. So therefore it's vital to kind of almost be ahead and to maintain that competitive edge. Next one then about actually attracting new talent. So the whole idea of people who, particularly young people, obviously the younger generations, are much more likely to want to come and join an organization where innovation is possible, innovation is around them, and then it would give that new talent that sense of actually I can contribute. Whereas, I mean, you can see my age from my face, but you know, when I joined WH Smiths as a trainee all those years ago, nobody was asking me for my ideas. Nobody was interested in what I might have to bring with a sort of fresh pair of eyes, whereas an innovation environment would do that. It also helps to continue to develop your own people. So actually we can all get stagnant. I mean, I'd probably be a classic example of that. So if innovation is much more in the air, then it keeps your existing people on their front toes about developing, stretching, learning new things. And then the last one I think is really, you know, we talk about how do we engage people for innovation, but actually if it's more of an innovative environment, it is then more engaging for staff, which obviously then helps people want to stay with you, but also increase their sense of personal well-being. I think when you look at people who are feeling frustrated at work or starting to get into, you know, kind of a slightly depressed, stuck, apathetic kind of state, very often that's because everything around them feels kind of, you know, the problems don't feel like they're being addressed. So actually, it gives you as a human level a greater sense of personal well-being if things are vibrant around you. Obviously, there's something about pace of change, but if you feel you've got a hand in that innovation, that really puts you in that great place of feeling more choiceful, more in control. And you can see the quote that Lee's fished out for me there, actually, that very high percentage of business leaders realizing that the future is dependent on it. So I think that's quite a strong case about why innovation is really important. So, okay, that makes sense. So next slide, Lee. So a question for you guys. Lee, if you can just unmute Joe and Richard, I think, because the group's so perfectly formed. And we'll just ask this as a question. So from what you guys know and think of in your own organisations, what does it take then to innovate? What would you say is necessary for innovation to be happening within an organisation or a team?
I think I was just thinking about the recent crisis. I think we had a day or two of like sheer panic, and then I think we went into really quickly, within like a week, innovating how we do things. And I guess I think you need to have the trust that it's okay to fail, you know, and to innovate, you absolutely need that. You need to have the trust that we're going to fail, and that's part of the process.
Yeah. So to have an environment where trust is there for that purpose, people have that trust almost up front.
Yeah, and I also think in our organisation, failure was seen quite negatively, whereas I think if you want a really innovative environment, you have to see that as fail quickly, learn from it, and it's the thing that's failed rather than you. Yeah.
So distinguish the idea from the person.
Yeah.
Richard, what would you say?
I think for us in this situation, I think cross-departmental communication's been really key, because I think in our organisation previously, we've kind of almost worked in a bit of a silo, really, in silos. What this has done is it's kind of, we use BlueJeans, just to answer your earlier call, which is our virtual sort of video conferencing. We use it, but we've not really utilised it previously. But I'm having conversations now with department heads that I've not necessarily had conversations with prior, because we're such a sort of global international brand. It's kind of it's really opened up our communication network, really. And I think from an innovation perspective, we're asking each other questions a lot more, so we're getting insight from you know, what those departments' priorities are, and it's kind of helping us to push forward quite quickly, which is really nice to see.
Yeah. So that's about kind of communications and actually an explicit reaching out to other functions and other viewpoints.
Yeah, and I think that comes from almost like you said previously, that doubting belief, really, of almost feeling a little bit isolated yourself in your workplace, because you know you're in your own home, you're working for your own laptop, you're not sort of having those human interactions on a daily basis. I think people are just reaching out a lot more for that connection, and I think that's really helping.
Yeah, and these would just be such interesting things to think about. Okay, how do we sustain that? You know, when we have more choices about how we connect, how do we make sure we don't just close back into what we were more comfortable with? Perhaps it's about, you know, by having to work in a sort of uncomfortable, unfamiliar way initially, actually we're starting to see some of these new things that are springing out from it. I'm sure that's happening kind of all over the place at the moment. So one of the things that we notice in organisations in more normal times is it's not always such an issue that individual people who are close to the work can't see improvements, or people who are perhaps quite creative or find it easier to look outside their organisation can't see opportunities for things to improve. What we see as more of a sort of cultural blocker for innovation is the way that new thinking is responded to. It's less about the people who might have the innovative ideas, it's kind of what happens when they come up against the existing way of working the organisation. So from our point of view, we haven't taken a sort of, how to sort of spark creativity type angle on this. It's more, how do you create a culture environment around you that encourages innovation by realising perhaps what may normally happen. So that's the kind of angle we want to take today. So what I would just like you both to do, if you just next slide, Lee, just very quickly, what I'd like you both to do is to stand up and put one hand in the air and put your other hand on your right ear. I'm the only one with the camera on, so you can see that I'm doing it. And then just share with us, if you were, both Joe and Richard, just what went through your head, what were you thinking and feeling as you did that?
I thought I'm in front of a window, so if anybody looks in, I look a bit strange.
Yeah, will they think I'm a nutter?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Richard, what struck you? What do you think? I think Richard's muted again.
I'm good. Yeah, exactly the same. I'm stood in the front of the window, and I live on quite a busy road. So, well, it's not very busy now, but
used to be. Yeah.
I mean, first of all, I was thinking, what's this about? I don't really understand. But
okay, yeah, okay. So just, although it's a very small, unexpected change, I might have been trying to innovate how we physically are while we do our Zoom calls, knowing we're probably all going to be sitting down far too much of today. But at a human level, we have some instinctive responses when we get an unexpected change or sort of something coming into our world as we're used to it. Next slide, please, Lee. Obviously in our workshops, we do this a lot with large groups, and the typical kind of thing people might say is, I'm not quite sure why we're doing this. You know, what does she say? How long are we going to do this for? Why are we doing this? Those kind of areas around, I just don't get this. Then the next area, sort of bottom right, can be actually, okay, I get what she said, but what's in it for me? What's going to be good about this? Actually, this feels a bit uncomfortable, feels a bit silly. And something like that, actually, I quite like this now. This is more sort of, you know, I can breathe better. It's quite nice to change my position. Oh dear, I can't reach my coffee. And then the third factor we see when people are responding to something new is actually I don't trust you, Anne, you know, where's this coming from? Or I don't feel safe. I feel like there's something that might kind of be bad for me here. And the classic things you both just said really is, do I look silly? What will she ask us to do next? Why on earth did I sign up for this? And again, when you've got a real group of people together, quite often it's a case of, well, is everyone else doing this? Or I might just wait till I, wait and see what others do. Does that make sense for folks? You can see that as being perhaps some frequently found responses when someone's asking you to do something different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
So that comes from some work we do a lot around resistance and engagement in change from a guy called Rick Maurer, who I'd really recommend. And what he's observed is that when we're faced with something new, which could be an innovative idea, it could be a change, it'll be instinctive for us to experience a little bit of resistance, maybe even just initially. And there's three core factors that can sit behind that resistance. First one there being, actually, I just don't understand this, I don't get it. The second one being, I might get it, but I don't like it, can't see what's in it for me. And the third factor could be, I just don't feel safe here, I don't trust that this is going to be okay for me. And it was interesting how you both said about an environment of trust, where it's okay to fail, is really important for innovation. So, you know, if trust is low, that's really going to pull it back. If people don't understand it, that's going to put us in another sort of break on. Or if people can't see what's in it for me. If you do the next slide, Lee, that will just flick it into the affirmative of what we're looking for. So if we're using this then as a way of thinking about, if you want to increase the sort of appetite, the comfort with innovation amongst your leaders and managers, so that when new ideas are being talked about or being proffered or even experimented with, you want them to fall on fertile ground and be encouraged rather than resisted. What do you think might be helpful for your managers, as it were, to have in their heads or say to themselves to help with each of these factors? So we'll just ask this question quickly, just conscious time has raced away with us today. So what might be one thing that would really help your leaders and managers for that first factor, to help them with that understanding response?
Is it about like creating clarity? So I don't know, for me, if I know why, I'm quite happy to give things a go, or if I can see how it links to the end.
Yeah, so a better understanding of the why, and again, that's when we do that exercise, standing up with more time, that's usually a very strong thing that comes out, saying that's what was missing, we didn't have a why. Or how it links to the kind of end goal, Joe, so how this particular bit of innovation links in. Yeah. Number two then, so what would help, you think, the sort of the possibly resisting leader or the person who kind of owns the issue currently to see what's in it for me? What might help there?
I guess it's selling the size of the prize, really, isn't it? Of why you need to innovate.
Yeah, and I think what really helps there is when you can do that in their language.
Yeah.
So from their perspective and in their view of the working world, how would this thing help? And sometimes things are constantly coming up for moan or for critique or whatever, which takes up an awful lot of organisational time and energy. Whereas actually a bit of innovation that might improve it or move it forward or give it something different could cut down a lot of that wasted time. And that's often not seen explicitly as a benefit. If you think how much time you spend moaning about the budget process, if you had a better one or a different one, it would move that moaning time, which is not getting anywhere, into okay, how do the new system work better? Where do we need to continue to innovate? And the last one, what would help build trust in this idea of innovating?
I guess it's communicating in a way that you're throwing yourself into this as well, and this is why, you know, we need to look at it from this angle, and kind of showing a bit of vulnerability yourself within sort of a new way of working.
Yeah, so it's not like I've got all the answers and I'm sure this is going to be the way, you know, please. It's sort of, I really want us to find a better way. I'm committed to it, this is my proposal, let's try it together, that kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe also showing that you've thought about what the negative outputs could be. So you think about what the negative results could be and working through them before they even happen, maybe.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, Anne, our CEO did a blog about the biggest mistake he'd done in his career and how it then led on to lots of innovation and doing things differently. It was quite a risky thing for him to share. Yeah,
but that's so powerful, isn't it, particularly at a senior level? That's that vulnerability you just mentioned, Richard, and then that makes it okay then to experiment and see what happens, sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, there's some great ideas there, and you can see how there's a lot more you could get into that, because if you're doing this with a group of leaders or line managers and helping them see what they need to encourage innovation around them, I think that would really help. And of course you could do it with a real team as well, because then you sort of unconsciously realize what you've been doing to block it, and then you open the encouragement of how to do it. So the last couple of things, really, just think about our own behaviour. Obviously we're mainly here, you know, the roles we're in, and think about our leaders, but these can be some good questions for them or them. So how actively do you collaborate with your team? Do you criticise or provide constructive feedback? How do you respond? Do you yourself have a view of empowerment, or do you struggle to let go? Because we all know if we had a room full of managers, including ourselves, struggling to let go is probably what we're doing. Are you open to all ideas? do you trust others to lead on their own initiatives? And how approachable are you when new ideas come for you? And I think questions 7 and 8 are good ones. Do you actually have time for innovation? Do you respect it? Do you value it? And think actually we need to allow space or time for this, otherwise we will get stagnant and fall behind. And kind of what's the mindset of me and my team or around this issue? When we see a lot of things in organizations where when a topic comes up, everyone's energy sinks and it's talked about, say like the budget process or something. I think they don't like it, doesn't work well, but it couldn't possibly change. So the minute the word comes up, the energy drops and there's kind of almost like a fixed playing to avoid losing mindset about it, we would say. So it's just noticing these things. And of course, if you flip this into the current situation, you're saying, Richard, actually at the moment, we're doing a lot with the positives of these right now. Collaboration, cross-functional. I think most of us are focusing on being constructive. No point criticizing me for the slides freezing, particularly because that does seem to happen. Let's move on. Empowering the team. We're all having to go at webinars and finding our way, trying new ideas. Lee's had some great sort of innovative ideas of late and kind of zooming away with things. And Colin had something published yesterday. So, we're just getting on and doing things because we know what the overall objective is. And actually any idea at the moment is a great new idea. So again, the last two, we've almost been given some time for innovation. Just what you were saying, Richard, it's been forced upon us. And actually the kind of growth mindset is what we're all doing at the moment. So it's a bit really, how would we continue to play to these kind of behaviors going forward would be the kind of the insight here, really. So I think I'm going to whiz us forward on to the end there. So just, this one, that just kind of replicates what I'm saying. But I think it could be really powerful, really, with our line managers and leaders about helping them see this, or using this in an affirming way, which is we've just been in a growth mindset place these last few weeks. How do we stay there? So those things on the left echo quite a few things that you said. Challenges help me grow. I mean, that's exactly what's happening now. Anything else you would just add there, guys, that you think would help your leaders and managers to be in that growth mindset place?
I think the time has helped them now, as Richard has said, having a little bit more headspace. And I think your challenge, Anne, is really true, that at the moment we can do it because although people's diaries are stacked, they probably have half an hour or an hour in their day that isn't stacked out. And how do you keep that when we return to normal?
Yeah. And actually, that's kind of the next bit of innovation that we're looking at, is how can we put out something that feels quite a pertinent, focused offering to help teams and leaders capture the good habits that are happening over these weeks.
Yeah.
Take them forward and avoid the risk of things sort of flicking back to normal, as it were. Yeah. Or certainly into old habits. And what's been interesting is talking to some of the leaders in some of our open workshops is how they are delighted by the empowerment of their people and how they're stepping up. They're wowed by it and loving it, but they themselves can almost see, and it feels a bit out of control. So it's a bit like, I'm kind of loving it and it's okay at the moment, but you can hear the but. So I think how we help with people, that would be a key thing, and that's that's what we've got. That's our next piece of innovation. Really. But
that's about them, isn't it, as well? They've got to let go of control and trust people.
Absolutely. So it'll be the same thing all the way down.
Thanks, Anne. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, thank you, Richard, Jo. Thank you both for signing in. So we've whistled our way out of time. So hopefully we'll see another one, and we'll see and talk to you again face to face one day.
Take care.
Take care. Bye then, guys.
Bye.
Bye.